actually wrote the problem statements themselves and understand the challenges. We also bring on federal data stewards who actually answer questions as subject matter experts, and open data specific subject matter experts that know and understand the data and help identify data sets for the sprint cycle. And we also bring on what we call user advocates. So these are either individuals or people out in communities or state, local government, nonprofit organizations, grassroots organizations, and everything in between, really that understand how those challenges impact their communities. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about some of those themes. So we also bring on product advisors, and these are from experts from outside of government who help the team think about sustainability and more of a longer term approach, how to get these products out there in the hands of individuals and communities that need them the most post-sprint. So we also build that into our cycle. And really the Opportunity Project, it sits at the intersection and at the center of community, technology, and data. So we bring together all of these organizations and individuals to work really understanding the data sets that are available out there that essentially would help others really address some of these challenges that I've mentioned in the past. So they range from, this year we actually touched on natural environment challenges, challenges in built environment, civics education, and many, many others. So we built a milestone structure in the sprint process, so again, over the course of 12 weeks, like I explained earlier, that really builds in a facilitated environment where all of these participants actually collaborate and come together and engage with each other. So usually we build 2 weeks interval for each of these milestones. Again, starting with user research, we bring all of the user advocates on board to meet the tech teams to understand the challenge from the federal agency side. And throughout the course of the 12 weeks, they really have a better sense of not only the needs of the end user, but also what are some of the biggest challenges that they face that could be incorporated into a digital solution in the product. So the idea here is not to prescribe any of the tech teams and folks from industry, whether it is civic tech organizations, startups that we bring on board as tech teams, or even private sector collaborators, to really understand how those challenges are impacting them. So you have that consistent loop of user feedback along the way throughout the entire sprint process. And then at the end, when they develop their MVP or minimum viable product, they have consistent iterations of feedback built into the process, which is facilitated by our team. So just to give you a better sense of some of these collaborators that we bring on board, and again, it represents everyone from big tech to startups, academia, universities, even students, and even nonprofit organizations for philanthropic organizations that have a vested interest in aligning their work to some of the challenges that we tackle. And lastly, I'm just gonna give you just an idea, so you have an idea and a sense of what we have done through the last 4 years. We're celebrating actually our 5th anniversary this year, and since our inception, the Opportunity Project has addressed over 40 different problem statements. So these are theme challenges where people come together and they're aligned to a particular topic. We also have collaborated with over 25 federal agencies who are the subject matter experts on these topics. So for example, right now we're working with EPA on how transportation emissions impacts air quality. Or how can we solve the problem for reducing plastic waste in our oceans? Or how can we help recently resettled refugees adapt to a new life and create economic opportunities for them? So those are just quick examples of some of the topics that we have worked with different federal agencies. In addition, we've had over 1,000 participants involved with the Opportunity Project. And again, that ranges from tech teams to the end users themselves, to data experts and federal agencies. And we have utilized upwards of 295 different data sets that we have curated for the purpose of the Opportunity Project Sprint process. And all of this you can find more on our website, which is opportunity.census.gov. You'll see products, you'll see some of the participants and some of the curated data sets as well. In addition, this year we're launching over 30 new products that have been catalyzed through the Opportunity Project Sprint this year. And we'll have a demo showcase of those products in December. And we'll share more information after this presentation. And lastly, we actually launched our first prize challenge competition last year. And we awarded over $100,000 in prizes for some of the most promising technology tools that have been developed through our process. So here are some, just a few examples. Again, over 100 products have been created today, and we're gonna give just a little bit of more detail on that, on the different examples and use cases. So we're gonna present 4 of them. So starting with PRados. PRados was a tool that was built by a tech team in Puerto Rico. And they built a tool that standardizes addresses in Puerto Rico to improve emergency response. So PRADO means the Puerto Rico Address Database Operations Support, and they help municipalities in Puerto Rico and communities at large to enhance their address data infrastructure. Specifically, we worked on this challenge with them after Hurricane Maria. So for emergency response and disaster recovery efforts, it was really a challenge in Puerto Rico to understand how to invest resources and how to target different areas of the island. And of course, absolutely off the grid. The entire island was without power for months. So it was really challenging for the different municipalities, which I also wanted to mention, they don't have a centralized database of addresses with geospatial coordinates for 78 legally independent municipios. So as you can imagine, this is a really big challenge for an island like Puerto Rico after a disaster like Hurricane Maria. So since there was no centralized database for addresses, there was no address data to follow federal standards that, you know, with significant inconsistencies along the way. So this is just a quick example. And since then, this team, ICASA, actually has worked as an advisor with a federal-wide agency working group on standardizing Puerto Rico addresses, which includes other agencies like EPA, USDA, Department of Transportation, FEMA, Census Bureau, NASA, and many, many others.
I'll briefly talk through a few additional examples. So in that same cohort of teams that came together, we called it the Geo Cohort because it focused all on geospatial challenges, the 4 problem statements, and I saw the request in the chat to be even more specific. So the 4 challenges relating to geospatial issues included that issue of local addressing and local address databases, as well as a problem statement on environmental stewardship, the opioid crisis, and the problem statement that catalyzed this product on helping people to prepare for disasters. So we collaborated with FEMA on that problem statement, and their challenge was, you know, they know that people are more likely to, you know, survive emergencies and disasters and have more positive outcomes if they are prepared and know what is, you know, likely to happen and what actions they should take to become prepared. But most people don't, and especially younger people and those who tend to move frequently, just they are finding from their own data, people really don't know what they're vulnerable to and what preparedness actions they should take. And so FEMA in their sort of traditional toolkit put out some preparedness actions and posted them on their website. But the problem with that is that most people don't go to FEMA's website just casually to read information. And so where they collaborated with us was to say, how could we partner up with the tech industry, with people in communities to better understand this problem and create solutions that people will actually use? And so 4 teams participated in that challenge, and they came up with 4 totally different products that were all, you know, equally really cool. So that included a game, you know, a data collection tool, and this awesome product called Seal. It was built by an American-Estonian company, based in Estonia called Datel Ovella, and their idea was, you know, they have a technology that you know, puts SAR, so like a certain kind of satellite data on a map and visualizes it like what you see here. And so what they could do is tell you with this tool how many even down to the millimeter, how many millimeters a bridge or a house or structure is changing elevation over time. So essentially you could say, this bridge is sinking, and if there's a Category 5 hurricane, it will collapse. Or if there's a Category 1 hurricane, this house will be vulnerable, or something like that. And that was incredibly valuable to places like Puerto Rico, even New York City. And they're actually currently still collaborating with the city of New York on a preparedness exercise around earthquake vulnerability, and knowing which places in New York City would potentially be most vulnerable. And so they use sort of block outline data to make this the most actionable for people in different parts of the United States. And it was, that to us was such an excellent example of a successful collaboration, because with the data, the right people at the table, they were able to really create a tool that FEMA never would have come up with on their own, and really help them to better deliver their mission. Another quick example came from our workforce sprint last year, and that actually including the Chicago workshop that I mentioned at the very beginning of this session. So starting from the very beginning, 4 agencies framed up different challenges. This one was led by HUD and the White House Council of Economic Advisors on opportunity zones, and helping to catalyze investment in opportunity zones where there was kind of this local problem that if you don't already have a huge base of investment and, venture funds, then, you may not be really able to grow an innovation economy through something like opportunity zones, which is a very, I think some people on the line may be familiar, but if you're not, essentially it's a really particular kind of investment and like tax opportunity, but it kind of requires to gain benefits from that over a number of years. And not necessarily every investor would understand the benefits and the logistics and how that works and why it's a good opportunity, or even what to invest in certain communities so that this program is really benefiting the people who live there. And so that was this really broad challenge, and another 4 teams came into this process. It was actually really interestingly a lot of fintech companies. We had the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth. We had City Ventures, which is a venture studio within Citigroup. And they built this awesome tool called City Builder, which solves that problem of helping investors to understand the potential of particular opportunity zones, and especially the ones where there isn't such a thriving investment community already in less invested parts of the country, and helps people to understand the economic profile of this community, what is the highest potential for investment. And this was actually one of the winners of our very first prize competition last year. They won a $20,000 prize for this work. And I'll just talk through this really briefly. This was from one of our early sprints in 2017, a great example of a game that was created by the company Cisco. Their developer program kind of leveraged the idea that they have such an incredible network of tech developers around the globe. And in America, they wanted to solve the problem of helping people understand why it's important to respond to the 2020 census. And so they created this game. I still think it's one of our most fun products, and highly encourage everyone to go to our website and check it out. It takes 5 minutes to play, and it's just a mini game that kind of puts you in the shoes of a superhero, and you need to put out a fire in San Francisco using census data and looking at what elements of the environment you can learn about using census data, ultimately kind of teaching people why the census is important. And so with that, I think maybe just to kind of round all of that up, because it was a lot of information, the Opportunity Project is about, bringing people together to solve problems with data. That's like, I think the shortest way to say it. And our process, again, starts from identifying a problem, identifying the data that we need to solve that problem, and bringing the right set of collaborators to the table to work on it. And so that is a model that we follow throughout our sprints and all the other work that we do. And that is really going to lead into the session that we want to do with you today, to get you involved in this process and source some of your ideas and get you thinking along these lines as well.
There we go. So with that, we're gonna do a quick ideation exercise for the remainder of today's workshop. And we're gonna certainly utilize our own model of human-centered technology design to brainstorm on 3 key things. So one is to get you thinking about what are some of the challenges that are important to your organization, as well as key information or data needed. What data, what information would you like to have access to, or would you be interested in talking to a federal data expert about? And then thirdly, think about people to collaborate with or to create solution with. So in the poll, hopefully you can complete that now. We're seeing some of the results. We want to understand who's in the room. So if you can share which best describes your role or industry as either a technologist, a government, if you work in government, whether that's federal, state, or local, if you're a data expert or aligned to interest in working with data, or a community advocate or organization. So we still have a few other folks to go. And it seems like we have a really good mix of technologists, 41%, government, whether that's federal, state, or local, 24%, data experts, 24%, and 29% community advocates. So it's a really good ratio just to think about as we go through the rest of the exercise and the ideation. Again, thinking about these 3 challenges, now that you better understand what the opportunity project is about, getting you to think more about the challenges themselves, what topics you're interested in, data sets, or just information that you would really like to play with as it pertains to a challenge. And then who are the stakeholders that you wish to engage, or that, in an ideal scenario, you would like to engage in addressing challenges. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna hand it over back to Drew.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorena. So I hope everyone has their creative hat on. If not, hopefully you're excited to jump into that space. And we are going to start, just like Lorena said, with the first step in our process, which is identifying really important problems. And we're going to give everyone 2 minutes to think about that. And just to kind of frame the question, the prompt is that obviously in the last 7 to 8 months, depending on where you live, the world, of course, goes without saying, and our daily lives have changed significantly. And I'm sure what everyone else is finding is that the operations of your organization and the challenges that are most top of mind for your stakeholders are also changing because of that. So, or maybe not, maybe you have, a persistent set of challenges that you're still thinking about. So as you think about where we are today over the next year, what are the most pressing challenges facing your organization or the stakeholders and communities that you work with? So I'm sure there's a lot that comes to mind, but everyone please we're gonna put 2 minutes on the virtual clock and ask everyone to come up with a few ideas. So you can write those down, you can jot them down on your laptop or wherever you're watching, but then we would love for you to actually drop those in the chat. So we're going to take a few minutes, brainstorm, and then as ideas come to mind, please just go ahead and drop those in the chat, and then we'll discuss them. So we'll get started now, and I'll put a couple of minutes on our timer. Okay, well, 30-second warning, and then we will open it up for discussion. But these are great ideas that folks are dropping in the chat, so please continue. Wow, super interesting examples. This is great. Thank you so much all for your ideas. Please continue, definitely continue to drop these in the chat, but I would love to ask if there's someone who would like to speak up and say a little bit more about one of their challenges.
Hi, can you guys hear me
Yes, we
and see
can.
me?
Hi.
Hi, I'm David Wiltz. Thank you guys for all the work you do. This is totally awesome to learn about. Um, I spend most of my time consulting with real estate developers and real estate investors on how to incorporate technology into their projects. And then that consulting work funds the development of a software platform we're developing for real estate planning. And that the platform's really meant to not just help investors and developers, but also public sector planners and community organizers. And to that end, we're really trying to incorporate as much public domain data as we can. And the simple stuff is the parcel maps and zoning data, although it's kind of crazy considering how ununiform it is across the country. But the thing we're really interested in gaining access to is specific data around redlining districts and doing really racial equity impact assessments and creating a tool that is data rich with all of the census and public and government data that could be available to inform the discussion and create a central point of truth for the people who are trying to help these communities, and also try to bridge the gap that not all development is bad and not all development is gentrification inducing. So those are the biggest challenges we have, and the big differentiator we want to focus on is doing 3D visualizations of the data, because we're building a Google Maps or Google Earth type of 3D environment, so we can visualize the data in 3 dimensions and actually 4 dimensions with time. So we really want to dig into the data in a unique way to be able to tell complex data stories visually and simply, so it can be accessible to as many people as possible. How's that?
Awesome. Yeah, that's such an interesting, really interesting work. And it actually sounds like you would either have a lot to talk about with some of the participants in our workforce sprint last year, because a lot of them, like public democracy and even the Opportunity Zone Challenge teams, really focused a lot on that. So it would be great to follow up with you.
Absolutely, would love to.
Yeah, I think to kind of frame it in our terms, it sounds like really the challenge that you're focused on is maybe, you know, housing equity or community racial equity, and that's a great. Does that sound right-ish?
Yes, that, and like the digital divide, digital equity too, all
Oh,
of these
awesome.
different aspects of equity, because in the map we can like show cellular coverage and where there's fiber to the home and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
so we're really trying to visualize all of the different types of equity that, you know, can be considered for helping communities.
Yeah, so that's such a great illustration of how things come together because, you know, for example, we'll often talk to folks in your position who are building out that work and come into our process as a tech team on a challenge related to the digital divide or community equity or something like that. And teams will say, this is the slice of that problem that we think we can solve with this product, or this is tech that we have that could contribute to a bigger set of solutions to that problem. So that would be kind of how the tech team comes in, and it actually kind of feeds perfectly into the next question, which we'll go into. And it, you know, it sounds like you're already working on that. Is what we can stay on this one for? Oh, thank you. Is what data do you need, or what information do you need to do that work, and who do you need at the table, which I think is a really critical one, especially for people coming from a tech angle to think about. And really for everyone in the process, who is really different from you, who can provide a critical perspective, whether that's a really boots on the ground end user, or you know, if you're not a tech team, then like how could a technologist help you out? How could a federal agency help you out, and things like that. So that's an awesome example. Thank you so much for raising that. Maybe does one other person want to chime in with maybe someone who's coming from a different perspective, or has a different problem set, want to chime in a bit and share more on the challenges that they're thinking about?
Well, Drew, this is Nitesh, in case if you're able to hear me.
Yes, we can.
Sure. So one of the problem statement I was thinking, and this is more from a research point of view at this point of time, considering in order to get during this times of COVID, and there's more COVID based scenario, that during this times of COVID, when the physical distancing has been promoted all across, and I would say, as in there is a sense of anxiety, and also coping with the uncertainty is the primary attribute which everybody has to go through. So in terms of that, if the data wherein could be researched for more successful story with respect to how and what different technological companies have done in order to resolve some of the user problem, and having consolidated those, that can also be helpful to bring across those particular ideas, and helping the users cope with the anxiety part of it. Say, for instance, if we look at pre-COVID and post-COVID, the usage of any of the video conferencing applications, there has been numerous sprints which has gone in to improve it during this time as well. But what are those? Because some of the time what we happen to do is we only happen to do look at it from a point action and not take it forward from there. So a consolidation of those kind of data by doing some user research would definitely be helpful for any unforeseen situations in the future, if ever it happens.
Awesome example. That's so helpful and really interesting to hear, because something that Anna is going to talk about at the end of the session today is that we're through all of this work, we curate data sets around each problem that we tackle in our sprints, and we've just started a data curation effort around things related to COVID-19. But the kind of one of the steps in that process is identifying different types of challenges, especially in that, you know, longer term effort to adjust to and combat COVID-19 challenges. So the anxiety issue that you brought up is such an important one, and maybe one that's getting less attention. So it's really great that you bring that up. One of the questions on the slide here is just, what are you currently doing to work on that? And it's something that we often talk about at the beginning of our sprints, just to get to know the landscape, and it really informs the data and the people that you need at the table. So are there strategies you're aware of that people are taking to gather that information or address that challenge currently? I'm not sure if you're on mute, but we can't hear you right now if you're trying to speak.
And I guess this question goes for anyone in the room that wishes to share their challenge specific to these questions, what Drew mentioned. But David or Nitesh, if you'd like to share a little bit more, feel free.
Yeah, it looks like there were some other people in the chat who chimed in about, pandemic specific challenges. So I think we maybe have time for like one more comment if anyone wants to add something. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, as in I was having audio issues, so I could not
Okay.
hear the question. I'm sorry about that. But if you could repeat, then probably I would let somebody who was talking, I would let them complete, and then I can come back on this thought as well. If somebody
Great.
can repeat the question.
Sure. Was someone
Hi.
else about to jump in? Okay, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, I'm Alan, and we got affected quite badly when we were trying to do an initiative to take some e-waste and use it as the basis of a training initiative for at-risk urban youth. And unfortunately, with the problems of COVID, getting access to the e-waste, except through ad hoc one-offs, through some folks that might just drop something off, really has stopped our initiative in its tracks. So I was wondering if the government data has any type of information in terms of where e-waste resides, the kinds of collections that have been made during the recycling centers from various governmental agencies, and of course those that are contracted for, and finally a type of mapping of where the various classes of different technologies reside. So, for instance, within urban centers, personal computers, laptops, all sorts of cell phones that have been sold or and distributed within different centers in the United States. And I was thinking that would be something from the Commerce Department, that they have sort of a cradle and grave take on things. So any ideas that any of you all, and of course the other participants might have, would be appreciated.
Super interesting example and question. I think we could probably also follow up with you with some ideas, and it segues so well into the next question. But I do want to ask the team, we this year have been working with the Environmental Protection Agency on a recycling problem statement that isn't specific to e-waste. But I wonder if EPA, we are part of the Department of Commerce, so we can certainly poke around that for you. But I wonder if anything about that kind of sort of supply chain issues has come up in the recycling problem statement. Does anyone from the team have thoughts on that?
This is Lorena. I've actually helped facilitate some of those conversations with our teams. And at least to date, specifically the issue of e-waste hasn't come up. It has been more so plastic and aluminum, I believe. But we're currently, engaged with this sprint and all the participants. So we're happy to also poke around with our own teams and ask several questions, because we do have, representatives from MRFs, the actual recycling facilities, and different individuals that actually, throughout the different touch points of that supply chain, could provide, probably a little bit more insight on the problem of e-waste. And we're happy to make introductions to you directly as well with some of the participants that are subject matter experts in this area.
Great, and just keeping an eye on the time, I think this would actually be a great time to go into our second question, which is exactly, what you just described. So picking one of the challenges that are the most pressing right now. So of the many, of the three that you listed, pick one that's super important. And then we want you to think about two questions. What data or information do you need to solve that problem? Or just what information and data sets do you need in general? And then who do you need to work with? And that might be a little slightly different way of thinking about this, but Even in the two or three examples we just discussed, it could be, I need someone who has access to that data. It could be, I need someone at the Department of Commerce to help me troubleshoot this problem. It could be, I really need an end user who is experiencing this problem directly so that I can build something useful for them, or anything else, depending on what perspective you're coming from. So we'll pause for another couple of minutes and ask everyone to pick one challenge and then write down 3 types of information you need and 3 types of stakeholders or partners you need to do this work. And then again, feel free to drop ideas into the chat as you come up with them. So we'll take another couple of minutes for everyone to do that now.
Hi, this is Achintya speaking.
Hi.
Hey. So I had posted an idea in the chat window. It was about service sector. As we know that during the pandemic, the service sector took a huge hit, and it impacted the contractors, the local businesses, and also at the same time the customers. So what I was thinking, uh, that there should be a digital platform or a set of platform that would make this easier for contractors to provide guidance and expertise to the customers, and they can sell uh, their tools. They can rent the tools. They can get it delivered online to the customer, and then customer can take guidance through videos or video calls or pre-recorded videos, and get their work done. They can make it a job into a DIY project. That can also happen. So when I started thinking about it, I was looking for, like, what if I had to come up with such a platform, what kind of data I would need. Would I, from a contractor's standpoint, would I need to check for, like, during a season, what kind of projects I'm being asked to work on? Is there a drop in the asks for that kind of project? From customer standpoint, I was thinking how my customers would be willing to really do the job by themselves. Um, are they interested um, in researching about the tools by themselves, or are they just going to go ahead with whatever any contractor would tell them on such a platform? So that kind of data I was thinking we could use to come up with a solution for such a digital platform. I wasn't sure whether any government agency captures such a data, or do we need to reach out to a third party vendor who generally does that. Any guidance or any suggestions would be welcome here.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good question, and a great point for us to flag that we have a public Slack community of over 2,000 people now who have participated in TOP or who are just interested stakeholders. And it's a really diverse community that includes people from the open data world, inside and outside of government, tech communities, all of the people that make up this process. So I would encourage you to, you know, maybe join that Slack workspace and just post a question and see if people have any ideas, because people are pretty responsive, and we may be able to identify someone who has those answers.
Thank you. And you said it's public tag community?
Yeah, we can drop the link into this chat, or we'll include it in, we'll find a way to get that information to everyone.
Thank you.
And I think just to make sure we have time before this session concludes, thank you so much for the awesome ideas and discussion. Please continue to post your ideas in the chat, or you'll have our contact information if you want to reach out to us after this. And I think with that, maybe we can move on to some of the next steps. But hopefully the takeaway from this is that this process is for everyone. We firmly believe that, you know, we need to start with an important problem and then find the right data and the right diverse set of people to bring to the table to create solutions. And we have a process that helps to facilitate all of that. And I think
Perfect.
with that, go ahead, Anna, thanks.
And so with that, we're just going to share about a few ways to get involved in the Opportunity Project in the next coming months. So you can see this list. So we're going to just go through all of these upcoming opportunities. On the next slide, you'll see Demo Week. So that's kind of the main way to get involved in the Opportunity Project, see what we've been working on. Typically, our annual culmination event is an in-person event where we showcase the tools that were built during the sprint. It's a one-day in-person event. But this year, because of the virtual format, we're able to host Demo Week, which will take place over the course of a few afternoons in December. And so during Demo Week, we're going to celebrate TOP's 5-year anniversary and share a little bit more about what's upcoming. We're also going to feature the over 35 new digital products that were built over the course of this year's sprints, and in addition have kind of keynote speakers and lightning talks, interactive workshops, and tech product mentoring sessions. And you can visit this link on our website to sign up for updates. But this is a really great event for government folks, technologists, community leaders, and others to just really learn about the process and collaborate and really dive in with other participants. On the next slide, I think one further slide, Lorena, I'm just going to give a quick overview of a product that we're launching publicly in December. It's called the TOPX Toolkit for Federal Agencies. And this is really an opportunity for agencies throughout the federal government to use the TOP model to facilitate their own product development sprints. Over the years, we've heard that agencies are interested in facilitating sprints or participating in our sprints, but often the timeline doesn't work, or they have a topic that fits outside of our typical, our theme for that year. And so we developed this toolkit that really allows agencies to follow our model, but modify to their own timeline and needs. And the toolkit includes a few different phases of facilitating a sprint, along with descriptions and estimated effort levels and downloadable resources. So like I said, it'll be publicly available in December, but we'd really love to connect with folks, particularly from federal agencies who might be interested. So please feel free to reach out to us before December on that, and we'll drop our email in the chat as well. On the next slide, we have another toolkit that's specifically focused toward technologists, and I know that there's quite a few folks who work as technologists here today. And this is the Product Development Toolkit, which is a guidebook for really transforming federal data into digital products that help communities. And so folks can choose a problem statement to focus on and then develop a product on their own timeline, but really utilizing the TOP model for data-driven, human-centered design development. So it includes forming a team and conducting user research and data exploration and product development and more. On the next slide, we have kind of just a showcase of our data curation hub, which I think Drew had mentioned earlier, but what we do is really curate data sets around topics. And so we have a few modules there that are broken into different themes. So around workforce challenges and geospatial challenges and natural and built environment challenges. So I'd encourage folks to take a look at that website because it's a really great tool if you're looking especially to build products that solve really specific questions. And then lastly, and I know we're going through this fairly quickly, but please feel free to reach out to us and also take a look at the slides and recording afterwards. But lastly, I know that quite a few people had mentioned challenges around COVID-19. And so I wanted to bring attention to the American Statistical Association Challenge. This year, we partnered with ASA on this challenge, which has a theme of helping families, businesses, and communities respond to COVID-19. And so we crowdsourced examples of topics that contestants can focus on as it relates to COVID-19, but folks are also welcome to kind of choose their own challenge and focus on it. And really what this challenge is about is using government data to kind of analyze the response and the effects of COVID-19 and also develop digital products that really address challenges related to COVID-19. And so the one requirement is just utilizing the most recent 2019 American Community Survey data, which is demographic data. But other than that, contestants are welcome to really incorporate any data sources they would like. And we have put up a module on our data curation hub that's specific to data around COVID-19. So we'd really encourage folks to take a look at that and then to go on the ASA website and take a look at more details of the challenge this year.
And this is Lorena. I would also like to add that as part of these supplemental data sets, we also incorporated several products from the Census Bureau that were in response to COVID-19 challenges. And those are the Household Pulse Survey and the Business Pulse Survey. The Business Pulse Survey gathers data on small businesses impacted by the economy. It also includes mental health data. So we recently had an event with NCOC where our subject matter experts on these two surveys talked about the impacts and increase in anxiety levels that they have gathered from these two surveys. And then the second one is the Household Pulse Survey, which has a little bit more data focused on the impact on our community. So I encourage you to check them out, and you can access them actually directly on our hub, which is opportunity.census.gov/data, and drop that on the chat. So if you want to check more data sets and different resources for COVID-19 response, please go to the Census website for more. And I think with that, we're going to open it up for Q&A. Drew, anything else you would like to add?
No, I know we're a little bit over time, so hopefully we have time for questions, but do we have time for questions? Does anyone?
We can maybe take one if there's
dying
interest, but we can wrap shortly.
All right, great. One question, or you'll have our contact information and feel free to reach out.
Hello. Thanks everyone for a very enlightening program. Just some logistics. Are there any restrictions as far as how you can gain access to the data sets from the agencies?
We only work with open data in our process. So that's the biggest restriction, is that this isn't a process to gain access to things like to restricted use data sets. So you're welcome to find that separately, and teams often use their own proprietary data alongside federal open data and, for purchase data and other things all together. But the one sort of requirement of our process is working with open data, and that is the only kind that we curate within our products.
And finally, are there kinds of covenants or restrictions in terms of the product that this data can be used for?
No, it's super lightweight. There, no signatures are required, and no money changes hands aside from an optional prize competition. So you really, as the builder, kind of retain control of the design of your product and the IP itself. I think we kind of have a good faith understanding with teams that they'll be doing something for positive social good with it. But teams have previously monetized products and used them within their existing platforms and things like that. So ultimately, almost, the whole design is up to you in collaboration with other sprint participants, and the government doesn't really have any concrete say in that aside from feedback and collaboration.
And finally, is the Department of Commerce our centralized contact point for all the agencies for the access to the data sets?
Yeah, so when you go to our data hub, which Lorena posted the link, it's opportunity.census.gov/data. That hub, in each sort of section or module, it lists the point of contact of a relevant data steward. So that's really one of the key elements of that product, is that we put you in touch with people who can answer your questions, and you're welcome to use that totally independent of our sprints. And then in our sprints themselves, we also have many collaborators involved from other agencies to talk more about the data and the problems themselves.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great questions. And I know we're over time, so we'll wrap it up. But thank you so much, everyone, and to the team for hosting this session. We're really glad to have spoken with you, and we look forward to hearing more from you after today.